What's up guys, and welcome to my talk titled Animating a Character Slip and Recovery. So like it says, today I'm going to be showing you my process for creating an animation that has our character slip, lose balance, and then regain it. It's going to end up looking like this guy right here. I'll talk you through my process from blocking, from planning to blocking to refining this kind of animation. And hopefully it will help prepare you for any kind of animation where a character loses their balance and maybe they have to recover. But before we hop into that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of information about myself, just in case you don't know. So my name is Myles. I actually got one of my big starts with animation with studying at Animation Mentor, where I learned the basics of animation, body mechanics, and awesome character acting. So now at this point, I have over 6 years of experience in the field, creating character animation for film, TV shows, games. Some of my projects that I've worked on include RWBY, the RWBY web series, and their crossover films, Justice League x RWBY. I also got the chance to work on another DC property, DC Heroes United. And now I'm really excited today to bring you guys a little bit of what I know in the form of teaching you about a slip and recovery. So first things first, the first thing you get started with any animation is your planning and recording of reference. And so for this demo, I didn't actually record my own reference, though I do recommend you get your own. I actually got a few references together that I drew inspiration from, and I wanted to bring them up here and talk to you guys a little bit about them. So one of the first references that I kind of found and looked at was this animation here. I like to study these falls. It's fun in this, super fun. It's usually fun, but it's funner in this case because you get to see these people fall over, and it's kind of funny sometimes. But anyway, the real thing that we're calling attention to around here is really analyzing, the weight of how these slips happen, right? Figuring out like what happens, what's the series of events, because if you've never done a slip and fall before, you can't expect to just be able to do it from your head. So I like to go in to my reference on any motions that I've never done before, and I take note of what is our center of gravity doing, that torso, and then like looking at these legs, and with this case the arms aren't as important because they're close to his body, but I do pay attention to that as well. And I just watch how this foot slips out from under this character, this guy, right? His foot starts to slide out from on this wet ground, while his center of gravity stays back here. And he's already lifted his other foot, so he's massively off balance, right? As his foot slides forward and away before he could get his composure, his footing, that is. So then he keeps going. It kind of looks like you have a little bit of this leg maybe wanting to get back on the floor, and then maybe with the center of gravity between these two legs, he might be able to catch himself, but he's not actually able to plant his foot, and probably there's just no way on this slanted driveway with the wet floor that he was ever gonna get his composure back. But you can see he kind of slowed himself down with this foot. Like, that foot did slow his slide down a bit. He tried real bad, but then he falls over because at the end of the day he's not able to get proper footing, and this leg that has most of his weight is here, and his cog, the center of gravity, is here, so he falls over. So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at when I'm analyzing my reference. Like, what's happening? Why? What's going on? What is causing this action? And what about the weight contributes to it? So I have another example that I like because it helped me come up with the arms of my animation. It kind of helped inspire it anyway. this fall. Let's extend this out a little bit more. So I like this fall because looking at it, again, I'm just analyzing the center of gravity and where these legs are. You could see she steps forward thinking she's going to find some solid ground here. And it's a snowboard. She steps on the snowboard and it moves. So she's losing her footing. Her foot is going to start going this way. And her cog is going to want to go this way or stay the same. So as she steps, that foot slips over and she's starting to lose balance. And this leg goes up. She's going to try to step to catch herself. But then you notice these arms swing out to the side. Here. Kind of like pushing her center of gravity over to this direction while her, it's pushing her weight over to screen right while her cog is still going screen left, right? She's trying to, it's kind of almost like trying to counteract that weight. So I did take note of that in the arms. See how they go out. Basically, just leaning her weight more on the right side. She's trying to regain her balance. She's also going to try to stick this leg out to catch herself. It's going to be super awkward. So you can see that doesn't really end up happening. She does get this foot here, but it's ice. So not only will this foot probably slip out from under her, her center of gravity continues to move forward. And yeah, her foot slips. So probably much before this point, probably right about here, was the point of no return where her motion is going to continue past this foot that is the only one capable of supporting her weight. And that foot's slipping. So she falls. So fun to see what happens here. What the weight is doing, how the body reacts, how these arms swing out to react to this. How she attempts to catch herself, and this may have worked even, but no proper footing. So I like taking a moment to compile, well, either, recording my own reference and doing it a bunch of times and figuring out what works for me, or looking at this reference that I find and seeing what are the common factors, what are the things I need to keep track of, what is the cog doing when my character is falling, where are the legs going, are the legs going out? This is what it looks like, both legs going out while the cog stays the same. But again, I do recommend you recording your own reference, because while studying reference and doing drawovers is an important part of the process, creating your own reference and having yourself slip and fall or recover if possible in a believable way serves more than two purposes. So the first purpose is, you get to feel out that motion. You feel it mechanically, so you can gain a better understanding of it that way by doing it. And another thing is, and you can get that from this reference as well, is being able to notice things from a natural performance that you may not have noticed otherwise if you just went ahead and you did it. Doing it yourself is even stronger because you get to feel those things, and it's great. But enough about planning. So that takes me to my next step, which is blocking. And actually in my planning phase, I just also decided that I wanted to do like a game-like loop where the character starts off confident, loses their balance, gets scared, and then catches himself and regains their confidence. And actually, I had another reference that I liked that made me want to go with that idea. This guy looking so confident before running off and trying to recover and falling into the water. So anyway, enough about that. Let's hop into the blocking. So let me open up Maya. All right, so here in the blocking step, you know, my animation looks a little bit like this. Not much of anything. The point of blocking isn't the way this looks in motion. The point is to get all your key poses in, and making sure that it kind of makes sense when you pop on through it like this. And I felt like it did at this point. So getting in this slipping pose like this, I'm paying attention to things like the silhouette, and the way things are posed. Of course, I'm looking at my line of action. I'm looking at, you know, this arm, this, like imagining, well, just really getting this motion, this pose feels like it's moving to me. As this leg moves out, getting this feeling of this arm sticking out, getting that, being informed by your reference and knowing that, okay, yeah, in my reference, I want to take that idea that he's gonna stick his arms out to try to regain his footing. And when I make my pose, looking at, you know, this negative space here, where things aren't are just as important as where things are. So negative space, you know, getting posing in like that. Getting like my ideas of, okay, he's worried here, or he's like mostly surprised at this point is the idea I wanted to get across. The open eyes and the agape mouth. And then I wanted him to go from surprised to worried. So I wanted to get a pose like this that I thought would be silly and fun. Again, looking at our posing, I'm looking at where these feet are planted, this negative space around here, even like closing off, making sure there's no negative space here, like keeping this one big shape as well, thinking of stuff like that, along with, you know, line of action and stuff, popping this chest out to try to look just to really, honestly, for this, it was just to make it look silly, kind of like it's some sort of dancing position, like he just trying to stay balanced for the most part. Just this really exaggerated, like, I'm trying to balance pose, right? And getting these arms up and out. Then getting this down pose. It's not perfect or anything by any means, but definitely wanted to get that feeling of, okay, he's down here. He's going to try to compose himself here. He's going to start getting a little bit more happy here. More like, I got this now. He's less worried, and he's about to transition into his I'm composed look. So then getting more and more confident. Then in this pose, just making sure that this feels like he has regained control. So he has most of his weight over this leg here. As he puts this leg out to step forward, he's in complete control, where he gets to put his weight over his weight-bearing leg finally, stick his other leg out and make a good confident step. And then getting this next pose in, where it feels like now he has completely regained control. I wanted to get that feeling that it looked like his chest was now leading that movement now, after the whole animation of his, you know, his legs and then his cog like leading his chest. His chest is like falling behind his chest and his head. Now he's regained control and he gets to kind of step forward with his chest. That was the kind of idea there with this. And then just going back and looping it back into our animation, into our starting pose, that is. So again, you know, played in, you know, just played through. It's not really about that, you know, but at this stage, really focusing on that posing, getting those storytelling beats in. Remember I said at the beginning I wanted him to go from confident to surprised and scared to confident again. So that's what I tried to get in my animation. He's confident, then he slips, surprised, worried, then he gets confident, and then he gets up, stands. And I think this is very clear when you kind of go through the keys. It's this character slipping and regaining his composure. And that was the point of the blocking. Now that moves us to our next stage, which is, this is polish. Let's open up our splining, our breakdowns rather, because our breakdown stage is the point where we, you know, in that previous step, it looked really floaty when you press play. There's not really any weight or timing to it, just those key storytelling poses. So in the breakdown, you could see that it's still not going to be perfect, but after this loads and you could see it in real time, you'll notice how the movement is feeling a lot more believable. A lot of the overlap and stuff that we need isn't there yet, but more of the timing and those general breakdowns have made it into the animation. Places like, especially when he crouches down here, I've added in more ease and even more frames here and there to make it feel like he really has to spend time down there to recover. It wasn't like that in our blocking pass. Everything happens fairly instantly because we only have the pose information and Maya's doing the rest, so of course it's going to make it look like a robot. Things like really getting these foot contacts in now, like, so we have more posing of him getting his leg up and then going to the floor, and then after his leg hits the floor, him leaning forward, you know, getting stuff like that, where things are going to be held, where things are going to be eased, getting that kind of timing in so you get a little bit more of that animation. Kind of refining this arm because I knew I wanted this arm swinging as well. That is right here. This arm, I knew I wanted to start getting this arm moving, and it's not perfect, but I do refine that a little bit more, the path of it a little bit, when it's slow a little bit more. Again, it's not perfect at this stage, but now when you play it in motion, it feels a little bit more like more intentional, you know, putting a little bit more information in, getting more of a feel for how I'm going to polish this and what my final is going to look like. So that's the breakdown step, like kind of putting in a little bit more of the timing, the spacing, and locking things like contacts down a little bit more, is what I did in my breakdown. So then that brings us to our last stage, which is polish. So now we will open back up that polish, and polish is where we really lock everything down. Up until this point, I've been kind of keeping things light so they don't look that perfect or anything like that. I'm really trying to wait till most things are the way I want them, because in polish, that's where I go crazy and I start adding things to different frames on different parts. So you can see when I highlight everything, you can see there's a key like everywhere, right? I'm really now starting to push things. Like for example, at the start, I'm really pushing like how his foot is leading this movement. Then he goes out, then his cog follows along. I start like adding smears and stuff to the hands at the quick spaces. I knew I wanted that arm rotating around to try to catch himself, catch his weight. Pushing things like holding this pose here where he's up in the air, and then using a smear to like pop his pose back into place. Like he really like swung his leg to catch his weight, kind of like pulling from my reference of all these people who are trying to catch themselves by bringing their leg back around and catching themselves, but they fail. Well, I'm taking that information and saying, okay, but when this guy swings his leg, it's going to be really, really fast, and it's going to snap into place into this nice little balanced, not balanced, but this pose where it's like it's clearly unbalanced, but he's trying his best to make it be balanced, you know what I mean? So anyway, just using my reference, that stuff that I learned to try to like inform how this works. I'm like holding this pose even more than I did. Like I held it a little bit more in my spline breakdown, that is. But then now here at this point, I'm holding it even longer to really sell this pose. I like this one, so I wanted to hold it longer. Focusing on, you know, getting these arms really feeling like he's balancing himself, changing his face from happy at this point to just like, okay, I'm determined at this point. I'm not falling. I'm not falling. I'm not falling. I'm going to focus, right? And then switching to his confident instead of the happy that I had before. Felt a little bit better. So this is the stage where you're able to then go in and add your timing, like add your extra details, that is, change up your timing for other pieces. Like for example, like here in my breakdown, things were moving at the same time, but now as this drops, you can see how he drops. And his, you know, his cog hits first, and then his chest goes down then up, then his arms go down then up. So adding in that overlapping action and that drag, you know, using your principles more and more as your animation progresses, in addition to using your study. We planned and we studied before we started this animation, so we're able to use all of that along with our principles to really make things stand out. And yeah, just really trying my best to break things up, not make things move at the same time. You know, this is the point where I might, you know, for example, I'm sure these hips aren't perfect for this demo here, so we could probably easily take a look at these hips. Go to Windows, Graph Editor. Oh my god, it crashed. Wow. That's classic Maya. We can go ahead and go to Windows, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. And for example, if I looked at my Y rotation on my hips, I might see some stuff that I would clean up. Yeah, so for example, you might look at this and I see my hips kind of start moving. This is going down, so it's moving kind of screen left as it goes down. So I notice it goes screen left and then it kind of stops here. So I might like delete this so it feels like it's moving the whole time. So it's like screen left this whole time. Try to smooth that out. And then it feels like it gets a little stuck though through here. So perhaps it like, we might, you know, we're adjusting these curves a little bit like this, and then having it feel like it's more rotating all the way through this move, all the way throughout. I might even raise this to get more, so it feels like, ooh, it moves the whole time. I might even get rid of this key and move this over so it feels like it's moving even longer. And this is the kind of stuff I do to try to refine this more. And without going too far into it, yeah, this is the point where I might refine all of these things, make sure things are smooth, feeling good. And then you end up with something that looks more like this, where it feels a lot more grounded, more intentional timing, more overlap and follow through, more character, right? So these are my general steps. If you want to know more about how you go from, like, if you're like, whoa, like that was a lot, like you just did a whole animation in 20 minutes, how do I even begin to follow along? Well, definitely, like, feel free to check out the courses at Animation Mentor. That's where I learned this stuff from, and it takes, you know, a lot more than 20 minutes to get an animation done, of course, especially when you're first starting out. So go ahead and check out the awesome industry professionals at Animation Mentor who can help you out get to this level and beyond. And if you ever want to ask me any questions, feel free. You can go ahead and hit me up on my socials, which you can find my website, mylesanimate.com, and my Instagram at mylesanimate. So thanks for following along on my lesson on animating that slip and recovery. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.